Good evening. Welcome to the shop. It's a nighttime edition. Alright, what's up guys? So I'm just about to set up this gigantic print on the Giga, my first giant print. And I've been wanting this whole time to make like a giant model of a action figure or a movie star character, you know, something like that. Because that would be awesome. Something life-size, you know, 6 foot or taller. So I was like, you know, it would be cool? The Terminator. Arnold Schwarzenegger in all his glory, especially because it's only like 2 colors. He's wearing mostly black leather, so I figured I'd do the black all in the Giga, from the legs up to the neck, all in the Giga, probably cut in half, and then I would do his hands, head, the other stuff in the bamboo for a little better detail, and I could do some multicolor in the face and stuff, you know. But I just want to hit one point of view that if you're buying a big printer or a gigantic printer like the Giga and you're expecting to take a small model or something cool that you found on the internet that you could easily print in a bamboo or something small like that and just scale it up, throw it in Orca Slicer and throw it in the Giga and hit print, there's going to be a lot of problems and a lot of headaches. First of all, it's going to take like a month. Second of all, it's going to take so much filament you need a pickup truck to get it all delivered. And third of all, you're going to have to take out a loan to pay for all that filament. So it sounds easy and cool, but it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So I'm going to break it down to you why it doesn't work, what you can do to kind of make it work, and going forward, creating your own models to scale and stuff like that. That's much better, and as people come out with bigger models for these bigger printers, you know, it will become easier. But once I go over these couple things, you will be able to adjust these smaller models, but just don't think you're gonna grab something small and shoot it out the Giga, because it's not gonna happen. So first things first, let's see what we got here. I went on the internet and I found me a Terminator right there, T-800. That's Arnold with his skin on, his leather still on, shotgun in hand. I thought that'd be pretty awesome to print. His true height is 6'2", and I was gonna do 6'2". This model though is only, what is it, it's 1/8 scale, and it's only 10 inches tall. It's not even a foot. So as it sits and compressed like that, you get very high detail. Everything sits nice and flat. You barely need any supports because nothing's heavy, nothing's really hanging, it's so tiny. But I want to blow this thing up to 6'2" from 10 inches. So that's an upscale of 749%. Brings us up to 6'2". 749. And then I had to drop it down just a hair to get the head and boots to fit in my bamboo printers. So I dropped them down to 6 foot tall, and that's 726%. All right. So let me show you how this model breaks down. If you look at it here, you can see you got a couple of head choices. Then it breaks down to the torso and an arm, the hands, the boots, the legs, and the shotgun. So of course the Giga is going to take the legs, the torso, the shotgun, and that right arm. Everything else is going to go into bamboo. And that's 1/8 scale, 726%. I was able to fit him in at 6 foot tall. But here's where you start running into the problems. I'm going to show you. So here we are in Orca Slicer. Let's get this picture out of the way. And you can see how tiny. This is brought in at 1/8 scale, 10 inches. And this is what it looks like on the Giga plates. Super baby. Super baby. So we're going to scale these up. Let's start with the torso. Click on that. I'm going to upscale it to 726%. Boom. Oh, that's 7,265%. Little too much. There we go, 726, and that's formidable. Fits on the plate pretty good. I mean, if you've been printing for a while and you're looking straight on at this, you're already seeing problems, I'm sure. Just look how that sits on the plate. You know, I'm not going to tell you yet, but you printers already know the problems. So let's boost up the pants here, the legs. $726. The shotgun. So small I could barely click on it. $726. And the arm. $726. Okay, so we're on our plates, and right there, boom, everything else you throw into the bamboo. I know you guys aren't worried about that. That's easy. Small, the head. I will go over that, show you some issues with that even, but let's look at this big stuff right here. First, the jacket. See, everything was pegged to fit together nicely in this print as small pieces. But look how high it's floating off this plate. And this thing is gigantic. So at this size, the jacket's only sitting on a zipper, a belt buckle, a corner of that belt, and that's it. And that's it. So, best thing you could do is probably take a square, stick it under this peg, you know, see if we could just do something quick. A cube, take a cube, size it, and just stick it under this this peg right here, and that'll support your model on a nice base, you know. If we do that, and then you can see, bring it around, move it back a little bit, and you can see our base would be sitting on a block. So that'll give us, you know, you're rocking left and right, front and back, and that's pretty good idea, right? Not bad. Look up under here. If you look up under this jacket, look at all that up under there. That's going to be floating in midair that needs supports. All these edges need supports. Right? Up in the sleeve here needs supports. You know, you could add a couple more blocks, one under the sleeve. You know, the belt buckle. I wouldn't really do like a support modifier here because you really want stability. So I would do solid blocks, barely touching like here and here. And those solid blocks will keep this from shifting. You know, and then you could do your supports. But look how big this is. Like even this, even like up here, this zipper that's swinging off right here, that's going to run a support from the bottom all the way to the top, which is crazy. You know, and then you might say, hey, lay it on the back, lay it on the side, but then it's going to look like crap because it's going to be down on the plate. You know, so it's already so many things to think about and wonder about. But let's say, hey, we just did this block, a couple more blocks, I'll skip them right now, and then we come over here, with the pants, looks like no supports. The pants print nice, right? But again, if you look up inside the bottom where the peg fits in, again, deep gaps. So it's going to want to add supports in there. Not so much in the outside, but in there. I mean, you could basically erase all that, you know, with a negative and just have a flat bottom on it. You know, there's a couple ways to do this. And then this arm, this elbow, how it's like that, crooked, you could get away with probably no supports if you just add a, show you. Over here we'll add a support enforcer, a cube. And if we put this under the elbow instead of just doing a million supports, you know, you set this under the elbow here, and you could stretch it out, move it around, but see, it'll square off the elbow and keep it from swinging around. So that helps that elbow. And then the gun, let me just move him out of the way for a second here. The gun will just tilt down a little bit, like that. It snaps down a plate automatically, and same thing, I'll just add a block like in the midpoint, and that'll create like a nice support in the center. There's our block. Let me scale it. We'll bring it up like that. Boom. See what I mean? So instead of doing paint on those supports, you could just put this block here, support modifier, and that'll turn into your tree supports or whatever you want. You know, I'm just trying to go through this because it would take me forever to do this whole design. You know, my basic point is just to show you that it's not simple. Okay, so even just like this, let's slice it up. Boom, simple. Da-da-da. I got all my settings pretty much standard. You know, of course, we're going to go a little bigger, you know, take advantage of the big nozzle. We'll do 0.24. You know, with regular PLA, we'll do a 0.24 layer height. We'll go 3 on the first layer. Everything else, you know, pretty much, we'll just do a 15 infill density. Leave it at crosshatch. Let me see what else we got. Actually, we'll do grid. Grid's a little easier than a crosshatch, a little less filament. Alright, let's slice this up just to show you how long this would take right here. Just all you do is basically scale it up, add a couple support modifiers. It's going to add its own supports, and let's see what we get. Alright, so this is one of Arnold's boots being printed with that round base that we added. I just want to give you an example that when something's that big at this scale, 3% infill really isn't that small. You get about 1 inch between the squares, which is pretty good on a model this big. So even though 3% infill sounds like nothing, something at this scale, 3% infill is a lot. So don't be scared to try that. Alright, so we're back, and I sliced that giant leg and that giant torso, and look what we got. With standard settings, default settings, supports, 34 days, almost 35 days. $650 worth of filament. 28,000 grams of filament. That's crazy. That's 28 kilograms. Just the supports is 4,000 grams. The model itself is 23,000 grams. So if you were to just take that little 10-inch Schwarzenegger model and just blow it up to a 6-foot tall person, cut it in half, throw it in the Giga, it's gonna take you 34 days to let that print. Alright, so let's go through the breakdown here. So this was the torso, right? The torso. 18 days just for the torso. 12,000 grams of filament. So we got 2 days on the inner wall, 2 days on the outer wall. Your infill is 8 days, just about 7 days. The solid infill, 14 hours. What else we got that's big here? Supports, 4 days just on supports. So that's why you want to avoid supports at all costs on these giant models. They will kill you. So yeah, try not to do supports. So that's the breakdown on the torso. Now we got the legs. What was this? The legs and the shotgun and all that? Yeah, the legs, the shotgun, and the arm. 16 days, 11,000 grams of filament. So we got 2 days just on supports. 6 days on the infill. 2 days on the outer wall. 3 days on the inner wall. Freaking crazy. Now you're wondering why this infill takes so long? Well, look what happens when you blow up even just 15% infill. That's what you're gonna see. At 15% infill, when you expand it 700% to make it giga-sized, that's how much filament you're gonna be using on infill. Tons and tons. Look at all that. That's nuts. So don't be afraid to drop it all the way down. I'm going to show you a quick picture of the one boot I got printing right now to use as an example of these printer settings that we're going to go to. 3% is perfect for these giant models or giant print. Alright, and then look at the supports. If you're going to do supports, they're going to be like 3 feet long. The supports are like giant sticks, like it's insane, like trees. And this is the normal supports. Forget about it. With tree supports, you would take even longer. You could barely even work your computer. It's trying so hard to generate those supports. And that's why I'm showing you photos right now, because just moving around the slicing of those last models, my computer was just freezing up every second. It was impossible. Alright, so now let's shut this down, and I'm going to go to the new way to do it. Alright, so let's bring this up now. Now you want to avoid supports at all costs. So what you got to do is you're going to have to cut these models. Even though it sucks because it's the Giga, you want to show off, you want to, you know, print as high as you can, but you just can't. So you're going to have to cut this and drop it flat. No supports. Drop the shoulders down, no supports. And that's it. That's one plate right there with no supports. And you'll be good. I'll go over all the settings after I show you how I set these up. Same with the legs. Just cut enough off where you get a flat surface to lay down. So all you want is that flat surface. You don't have supports holding you up. Flat surface for the waist. I even cut the zipper off of this arm because that was sticking out, and that would be like a foot of supports just to hold up a zipper. Cut it off, lay it down. And my block moved a little bit here, but this is my support block for the elbow so it doesn't rock around. See, that'll just lock into the elbow when I slice it. And then I got a support block for the rifle. right there. And then I think I put a couple little supports inside the trigger of the rifle here. Let me just check my painted supports here. Yeah, and here I just put a couple little supports for that, and I'm just gonna put a brim down on here, and that's it. That's it. No other supports. No other supports. So let's go back out of here, and I'm gonna show you the settings now. Just back a little, make it neater. So look, in quality. So we're going to set up with a 0.42 layer height, and that's a setting for the STORM GIGA. If the setting's not there, just make a custom setting, 0.42. That's a pretty thick line. It's probably the thickest you're going to get, where it's not going to look horrible. It's still going to look pretty good, especially on camera and with everything being black. You know, everything's going to be black. I just have it blue so you could see it better. So layer height 4.2, first layer 4.2. Line width 0.6. Alright. Change anything else? No. Strength. This makes the big difference here. Wall loops 1 or 2. Depends how long you want to wait. You know? It does take a long time. You got to remember, when you're expanding this, you're expanding the actual size of everything. So even though you have a thin wall as a small model, you're making it 700 times thicker when you expand it. You're not bringing a small wall the same thickness up big. You're expanding it. That's why that wall took so long in the slice, you know? Days to print just the walls. So one wall loop at 0.42 is just like having 3 or 4 wall loops at 0.16 or 0.2 when you're, you know, doing your regular size model. So don't be afraid. 1. Top shell layers, just do 2. And again, we're gonna try this out. I could be still off, but we're gonna try. Top shell thickness 1. Bottom shell layers 1. These bottom shells, you're not going to see any of these bottom shells. They're all getting glued together or put together. So who cares? Just enough to stick it to the plate. Bottom shell thickness is going to be 0.442 anyway. You know? Okay, infill density 2%. 2% is plenty. I'm going to show you on the boot what you get. Lightning. Lightning is the quickest, least amount of filament you could use on an infill. So we're going to try that. Okay, speed. Speed, you got a fast printer. You didn't get a fast printer for nothing, you know. First layer 120. First layer infill 120. And all these could be changed while you're in action. Speed, extrusion. You can change that while you're going. So you play around, you know. Outer wall 140. Inner wall 250. Sparse infill 300. Everything else stays the same. Supports. Okay, enable supports. Tree manual. Don't let it put supports where you don't want them. You saw I put my 2 squares, my 2 blocks, and I put a couple on the trigger of the gun, and that's it. Everything else looks okay to me. Tree slim, because they're in that's nothing. Threshold angle 60. First layer density 10. Okay, my Z distance 0.25. So these blocks, these supports, we'll be able to get them off. They're not going to be jammed on. That's the distance they'll be away from the model, 0.25. Okay, on other here, make sure I did the brim on this. It says no brim, should be a brim. Get rid of the skirt loops, you don't need that. But yeah, I want to do a brim on this gun. But you know what? I'm just going to paint some ears on the bottom of this gun. Let's do that real quick. No brim, because nothing else needs a brim. let's just paint some, let's just get some brimmiers on the bottom of this gun here. Let me zoom in here. Head diameter, max it out, why not, eh? And there you go, get some brimmiers here. Yeah, get rid of these ones here. Get some nice fatties. I don't know why that's small again. Diameter. Keeps popping down on me here. Boom, boom, boom. I like to spread out as much as possible. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. Now we got some brimmiers on our stock of our shotgun. Okay. Alright. Now let's slice it and see how we did from, was it 34, 35 days? I ran through this like a wild man just now. Hopefully you can keep up. But I'm sure you're not buying a Giga or a giant printer as your first printer. I'm sure you kind of know what you're doing already. If not, you know, give me a shout. If there's something you want to know in detail, I'll make another video, or I'll explain it better, you know. I'm just so excited to print this. I want to get this done and go. So let's slice all these plates here. All right, let's check in on our boot again with those minimal settings, just to show you how good it looks. With such minimal settings, you're still gonna get something that's pretty nice, you know. There's a boot with no supports, with our extra large brim that we put on her. Only 3% infill, and the thing looks like a beauty. 2 walls. No, it's going to be perfect for what we need. Alright, that's so far. We'll check in again later when it's a little higher, and then again when it's done. Alright, I made it back. Now that's sliced. The first slice took almost 45 minutes to slice. This took about 10 minutes. And look at the difference. We went from 34 days to 4 days and 17 hours. That is a cut. As long as the model comes out right, I'm way happy with that. Then we're only at just about 3 kilograms of filament. 500 grams for the support. 2,500 grams for the rest of the models. Not bad at all, huh? So let's see what we got per part here. It's moving a little better. Okay, so there's our model. So the torso here is going to take 1 day and 18 hours. I've had little bamboo models take longer than that. You know? Alright, let's slice this open a little though. I'm going to show you what lightning does. What lightning infill does. Lightning infill is almost like vase, because it just gives you a shell, really. It slaps up some filament around the perimeter of your walls, but it doesn't really support anywhere in the middle. So it's going to make my model a shell, you know, which isn't bad, because it's just going to be, you know, I don't plan on tossing it around. You know, I do have a plan for it, but it should survive just being a shell. And if this is just a display piece or something like that, it's good being a shell. Any model's good being a shell that is just for display and not serving a purpose. So, and look, we cut 30 days off using the lightning. And you got to remember that your one wall, your Giga nozzles can go all the way up to like 1.4 millimeter. So you got to remember that 1.4 millimeter wall is like 6 walls that from your bamboo. So where you're using just one wall on the Giga, is equal to 6 walls in the bamboo. So you don't got to worry about that. Don't think that, oh my God, it's got to be 3 walls, 4 walls. No, depending on your nozzle, you'll be okay. After this print, I plan on drilling out a couple nozzles, 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, and seeing how they work. And I'm sure I'd get a faster print. I was going to do like a 1.2 with this, but I wanted to stay with some detail and some features. I didn't want to just look like spaghetti stacked up, you know. But there are certain times when that will come in handy, just speed printing as lines, you know. So that's it on the Giga. So let's see our bamboo parts before I go. Right, we're in the home stretch. Not too bad with our boot. Alright, we're done in Orca. Back to bamboo. Now, I gotta try to remember to get everything out to you guys that I want to let you know. Alright, so now in bamboo, same thing. I'm gonna have some issues. Like right here with the boots. If you try to just print these boots, they're gonna keep peeling off the plate when you go to print. And you're gonna be like, what the hell's going on? Make the plate hotter, make this that, make that this, nah. But no, you're just getting bamboozled. The boots only touched the plate in certain spots because it was such a small, remember, it was such a small model that it didn't matter. The texture of the bottom of the boot was always going to be flat anyway because there was barely any rise. It was so tiny. But now if you look at these boots, see if I could show you the bottom somehow. If you look at these boots, I changed the color. You could see on the bottom they're all different shapes. So you're only touching the ground in certain spots. So as it goes to print the first layer, you're floating in a lot of spots. Let's see, I might even be able to highlight it with the lay on face. See? Lay on face even is barely touching anything solid to the ground. This is all off the ground. These are off the ground. You only have these 2 spots touching the plate. A couple little spots here touching the plate. So when you go to print, you can have spaghetti in a couple minutes, you know? So what I did, the solution for that, you could say, hey, give me supports all over the bottom. That's going to take forever, and that's 1,000,000 supports. Trust me, I tried it, and it was a 10-day print for one boot with all the supports you needed for the bottom. So what I did, you can see right here on this boot, I right-clicked the plate. Yeah, let's get off of that. Right-clicked the plate. I added a primitive cylinder. See? A cylinder. And then I stretched it out. I stretched it out so it fit under the boot, flat on the plate, and then I just elevated it a couple millimeters till it took out all the imperfections under the boot, and boom, I'm perfectly flat on the plate now. And now when I have a 6-foot tall model, I have 2 like nice flat pedestal surfaces for the model to stand up. Bada bing, bada boom, that problem's done. Get this guy out of here. Next, we come around to the hands. Well, the head, let's do the head first. I put the head in bamboo because I wanted to color it. Hey, you got the AMS, might as well use it. So I got the skin tone, the black, and the hair brown. But the head was still a little tall to fit in this. So I chopped it under the neckline so you won't really notice it when I glue that back together. And I brought the neck over here and flipped it so that there'd be no supports. If you stood it up on this, you'd have supports all around this edge. So I cut it and flipped it. Always flip to your flattest, widest spot. You don't want supports. Supports are your enemy. Remember that. Same with these hands. You would think, oh, I'm just going to stand them up on this flat spot here, give them a brim, and hit supports. Supports. No. When these hands are tiny, little 10-inch figurine, little tiny, you don't need supports. They're so tiny. The fingers are like a millimeter. But now if you stood these hands straight up, you're going to have supports all over the place. It's going to look like a jungle, a rainforest. So just add a couple of these what are they called? Enforcements. Let me see, what are they called? They're called support enforcers. Yeah, that's right, support enforcers. The only enforcers I like. So, hands, head, with all that set to go, here's my settings. Simple settings again. You go with layer height 0.2, 0.2. That way you get some speed, and you still can have detail with 0.2. You know, change anything else here? No, everything else default. Strength, wall loops, just 2. At a 0.2 filament length, 2 is good. Remember, we're not using this as like a car part or a bumper or something. It's just a model. All right, top shell layers 2. Top shell thickness 2. Bottom shell layers 2. Bottom shell thickness 0.4. Infill density is just a 3. You saw the boots coming out. That's at just 3%, and that's plenty of freaking infill. And that's on the grid, you know. The grid is probably good for the big prints too, but it's gonna use a lot of filament. I mean, but if you need that support, use it. You know, it's better to just get your strength in the walls on these big prints, not so much in the infill. If you're gonna use a thick nozzle, get a thick wall, and that's where your strength is gonna be with these big printers. All right, speed. It's a Bambu. They're fast already. The initial layer I went slow because of the sticking problem with the supports, but I really didn't have to. This initial layer can go right back to default. 5105. Supports. Enable the supports. Tree auto. I raised the threshold to 60, so if it does pick some supports up here and there, there's going to be barely any. Always on the build plate only, always. Because if you don't check that, Bambu's gonna want to throw supports everywhere. It becomes ridiculous. I don't know if you figured that out already, but it's crazy what Bambu wants to do with supports when you have that off. You got supports wrapping around. You're gonna support the ear from the chin, and you're gonna support this ear from the elbow. Like what? Alright, then others. Did I do a brim? Well, my prime tower is enabled, of course, for the head. Did I need to brim anything? Maybe these hands. It's gonna start with these little tiny corners. So instead of hitting, see, brim on this, gonna brim everything where I gotta pick that particular part and brim it. Let me just paint some ears on it, you know? I think that's the easiest way for me. Get a big head diameter, huh? Sounds pretty freaking gay. Alright. There, we add some little head diameter brimmies on there. And we'll go back, grab the other hand, add some little freaking, what do they call these things? They're just like little round brims, right? Come on, let's go. What is it doing? How come it's not working? All of a sudden. There we go. Jack her up. Paint them on right here. Click them all over and zoom in a little bit. There we go. Couple little brimadimmers. I just want to recheck the other one because I don't think I zoomed it in good enough to make sure I was alright. It's weird, I won't just let you stack these all along each other, you know? What's the difference? That's good. And that's that. And I already sliced everything on these. I got my times right here and my filaments. So the boots, Both boots with no supports came out to 14 hours, which is pretty good. This boot's about to be done. I'm about to show you how big this thing is. For a 7-hour print, it's pretty good, man. Pretty good. The head, 2 days and 10 hours. This head pretty much takes up the whole chamber like a helmet print. So that's good, especially switching colors with the AMS, how much of a waste it is with all that poop. That's pretty good. And then we got the hands and the neck plate is 12 and a half hours. Not bad. You're getting 2 hands and a neck for 12 and a half hours. It's a deal, you know, with supports. So you're looking at, well, everything's going to be running together anyway, so it's going to be quick. I got a big plate going on the Giga, and I got 3 PS1 bamboos going to go at the same time. So that's why I'm hitting the one boot now, because I'm going to have these 3 plates go together at once. So at its longest, it's going to be 2 days for the head. Plus the 4 days for those 2 items on the Giga, that's 6 days tops in this print. And I'm looking at like 5 rolls of filament, 5 kilograms of filament, which is great. So that's it. I know this video was babbly, all over the place, very unprofessional, but I was like, hey, before I throw a big print on here and scale something up big, let me let everybody know that it's not that easy, and that there's going to be some problems, you know, because like anyone would think, even myself, I'm going to get a big printer and just print big, print little things big. No, not as easy as you think. You know, until maybe, you know, you get a good scanner and you can upscale right from the start, or, you know, you make something from the beginning up to scale, then it's going to be fine. But now you see it is possible, but it is a little work. Don't just throw this thing in there. You're going to drive yourself nuts, you know. I'm going to go check on this boot, see how it looks, and I'll be back. Boot progress. Almost there. It was only 7 hours for this, and that's really not bad at all. Alright, I'm gonna grab this boot, switch off to a real camera, get away from this computer for a second, and see how we did. Peace! Alright, the boot is ready. The first piece of the T800 puzzle, the Terminator's foot. Look at that. See, with all those minimal settings, just 1 or 2 walls, 1 bottom wall, it's perfect. Perfect. Only 3% infill. This thing is a tank. Got a little swirlies up top here. You know, everywhere else is a very nice print for 0.2 layer lines. Got a nice pedestal here to hold them up. I'm very happy with that. Hopefully the rest of the print comes out just as good. Let's see something here. Oh yeah, look at that. We're definitely life size. A lot fatter than my foot. And you can tell right here I went from regular speed to sport all the way to here, and then I went to ludicrous speed, because you're not going to see any of the top, and you can't tell me you're not impatient when it comes to the end of a print. So that's that. I'll throw a time-lapse ASMR at the end of this video. The lights are a little bit off in my printer, a little glary, but I'm going to fix that all up. It's my first YouTube time-lapse, so, you know, I'm getting better with every video, and hopefully I'm helping people out there, because you guys have helped me out when I needed it. So it's time to return the favor. Alright, see you tomorrow when we start printing. Arnold, I'll be back. Peace.